So what blockchain tech is great for is organizing people and labor around problems that the old system has ignored. The old system views hair loss as a cosmetic condition. It's not a disease, and it receives zero funding from federal institutions who fund the overwhelming majority of all early stage biomedical research. The last new treatment for hair loss was FDA approved in 1997, which was finasteride. So it's been over 25 years since there's been a new hair loss treatment. 2 billion people have hair loss. I have hair loss. 2/3 of men will have hair loss by the time they're 35. Hair loss forums are top 1% of Reddit forums. People on the internet have the tools now to do their own research and fill the gap that the traditional systems ignored. And we give them the platform to do that.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of Out of Office, the podcast where we talk to founders at the earliest stages of their company, building something amazing. And today we have with us Andrew Bakst of HairDAO. How are you, Andrew?
Great. That was great pronunciation too, the last name. Not everyone gets that right.
Oh, nice. Completely lucked into it. So yeah, I mean, we're definitely going to start with a company and get into a lot more. So please tell us, what are you building?
So HairDAO, and our mission is to cure hair loss.
And when did you get started?
We launched the Discord in November of 2021. So that's kind of what we say was the official start date. The token launched much later in February/March of 2023. So about a year and a half later. So yeah, there was some time between like our initial community forming and launching the token. But yeah, we use the Discord start date.
Okay, so now we've confused 90% of the audience that isn't in crypto, and maybe some of the ones that are, but that's great. So HairDAO is, DAO is a decentralized organization, and HairDAO falls into this group called decentralized science. As far as I can tell, HairDAO was probably one of the first, or before that term even existed. But you could say more. What does that mean? Could you kind of explain what the hell does that mean? Why are we talking about tokens, and how does that relate to curing hair loss?
Yeah. So what blockchain tech is great for, I think like any tech, is organizing people and labor around problems that the old system has ignored. And so the old system views hair loss as a cosmetic condition, and therefore it's not a disease, and therefore it receives basically zero funding from federal institutions who fund pretty much the overwhelming majority of all early stage biomedical research. So the last new treatment for hair loss was FDA approved in 1997, which was finasteride. So it's been over 25 years since there's been a new hair loss treatment. And yeah, I think so that's what blockchain tech is good for at a high level. And I think that's why it works very well for what we're doing. I also think like you need the demand side, right? So it's not just the fact that it hasn't been solved, right? It's also the fact that 2 billion people have hair loss. I have hair loss, like
I have hair loss.
So like 2/3 of men will have hair loss by the time they're 35, which I think also plays well with the internet, just because like if you go on Reddit, hair loss forums are top 1% of Reddit forums. People on the internet, which tend to be younger men sometimes, they also have the tools now to do their own research and fill the gap that the traditional systems ignored. And we kind of give them the platform to do that.
Okay, cool. And so how does that work? Like, I guess the first question is, where does the money come from? Okay, so you're using crypto rails, great, but who is funding this research?
Yeah. So our initial investors were pretty much all, I should say funders technically, we're pretty much all crypto VCs.
Okay.
Well, we had a fair launch community auction, which I don't think a VC participated in, but then we had a follow-on round, peer-to-peer round, so we called it, where we raised about 3 million there, and then we just had a smaller bridge round where we actually brought on our first more bio VC, which is exciting. Yeah. So yeah, I do think that there's, as DeSci and crypto have kind of grown in, on the internet, more traditional VCs we're now talking with. But initially, yeah, it was all crypto VCs.
Okay. And how do you think they're thinking about getting return on that investment? Obviously, investing in a medical device or research is very different than investing in a software company or some token that they typically would.
Yeah, it's a great question. Ultimately, I think if we cure hair loss, that will be valuable.
Sure, of course.
And then, and there's several components to the business that, we are working on that we can go into. So there's the cosmetic side where we sell a shampoo and on, like, we call it all natural, but basically a natural hair loss topical of kind of the strongest natural ingredients you could put into one. And then there's the proprietary drug development. So developing actually new drugs or repurposing old drugs, in the case of our first new treatment, that can offer patients a new method that to fight their hair loss. And so that's kind of the distribution to consumer side. There's also like the contract research organization, CRO side. So we've now in-house our lab. We're still running several studies at universities, but in-housing it has just allowed us to achieve a lot more scale, just because if we're doing it ourselves, then we can just fully focus on it and drive down costs. And so we have been approached by a few people. We haven't done any third-party research yet. We just don't really have the bandwidth because we still have a lot of ideas of our own, but I could see how at scale we could offer lower costs for like really any biotech company that wants to conduct early stage preclinical research.
I see. And so before we get into the products themselves, it sounds like, you kind of shared how the financing comes together and is different than a typical organization researching these drugs. How does this setup change like the actual research? I don't know too much about that space or the traditional side, so you would have to explain the differences between there and you, but I'm curious how it changes the actual research.
Yeah, so in the traditional system, you have basically these siloed labs at, pretty much every university in the world. They don't really talk to each other that much until they've actually published their data. Whereas ours is, so that's the current, what ours is it's very much like an open forum. So anyone can join our Discord and propose a study idea. All of our study results, we kind of tier it based off how much hair tokens you hold, or if you sign a confidentiality agreement, just because blending biotech's a very closed source industry, whereas obviously crypto is very open source. So we're still working on blending those optimally. But yeah, ours is much more, you can be an anon on the internet. Like the study we're currently running in London was designed by like the top internet anon researcher. Our first hire here to the lab, who's now our principal scientist, has been on hair loss forums for 10 years as a mechanical engineer who taught himself. Yeah, so I would say our platform is much more open, much more conducive to collaborating with people all over the world. And I do think from there, it becomes much more of an iron, sharpening iron, and actually like in pursuit of the truth, just because no one really has any ulterior motives. No one's trying to, get tenure or, get some role in some institution. It's really just, is your idea going to help us generate data that will help us find the cure?
I see. And are they financially incentivized to do so? Is there something with a token that they get if they discover something? How does that work?
Yeah. So, we basically have our own blockchain just with very long times in between blocks called haircuts. But yeah, we like memes. So if you contribute research to us, basically we'll give you some sort of base reward in locked hair tokens, grant you, and then contingent on the performance of your research can give pretty strong incentive bonuses as well. I do think what makes our community a little different is a lot of the best researchers were already doing this. Like they would be researching hair loss anyway. I think we just give them now, with the lab and the funding, the actual tools to conduct the research. And then I think the token's kind of like gasoline to a fire that already exists.
Nice. That's awesome. Could you help us understand, why would a hair loss researcher be anonymous? I'm just curious.
Well, they could have a day job, or they could have had a past job. Like we joke, the best researcher, he'll joke and say he's a plumber, or, but no one knows what he was, but he could have been a postdoc, or, he could have been a successful tech entrepreneur. I also think, so there is quite a lot of bit of energy in hair loss in the online communities, and it's not always directed in the most positive way. So false accusations, victim, he's been harassed before by,
I see,
a YouTuber or here or there. So,
okay.
Yeah, I could see why.
I see. Okay. Makes sense. And then all of this, done something completely new structure-wise for research. As far as I'm aware, I'm curious who your contemporaries are too. But this has led to new products. So you had a shampoo called Follicool that you could tell us more about. But you also have like a pharmaceutical, right, called Anagen. I'm actually a customer, so I just started a ball recently, and it seems to be honestly side by side with Hims or just any minoxidil, finasteride kind of product. It's honestly seems to be working better for me. So it's cool to see a crypto setup like this come out to a real product on the other side and really have some novel research.
Yeah. No, thanks for saying that. I think we want to fully verticalize because even our community is fully verticalized. Like our best researchers are, people who have hair loss. So really just completing the full pipeline where you come to us with an idea, we can basically from idea to commercialization, then bring that back to you. So yeah, that's really the goal with Anagen, is all these ideas that we're running to the lab. How do we actually then, deliver them to our community?
And so for anyone listening with hair loss, which is, I think our audience is 90% male right now, working on changing that, but it feels like many of them might have it. I mean, please feel free. I'm curious how you would sell like both of these different products, like who they're for and why they should try them.
So Follicle's an everyday shampoo. My fiance uses it. Plenty of women have ordered it too. We basically wanted a shampoo that wasn't irritating, wouldn't clog your pores, had a little bit of conditioning agent in there because I don't use conditioner. Yeah, I like to just use one just for speed.
Sure.
Yeah, so that was something we kind of made for ourselves, but we actually sold out the first line and are now spinning up supply chains in China and the US just to drive down shipping costs, which was pretty much the highest driver of the cost there. Whereas Antigen is much more like for 95% of the products on Antigen, you need a online doctor prescription, like you were saying. Not different products there are good for both men and women. But yeah, I mean, I think our goal is to offer, what's best for each individual person.
And what is the specific product? Like in some of the Antigen products, like the kind of, I mean, I think of it as a breakthrough. You can tell me if it's something else, but what is that new thing that you're offering? Like, please tell us about it.
Yeah. So, there's, basically a hormone made in your body called T3. It's the active form of thyroid hormone. So you may have heard of T4, but T4 gets converted in your cells to T3. I'm sure T4 has other off-target effects too, but T3 is the much more potent one. And we basically tested both T3 and T4 in human scalp skin. There'd already been past research on it by the inventor on our patent, Dr. Ralph Paus, who had tested on hair follicles, like just hair follicles in a dish. And the results were really good preclinically. And then from there, we had a small group of people in our community who wanted to try it, and we were able to find a doctor who was willing to write us a prescription. So we tested it ourselves, and the results there were also, I have to be careful with what I say, just because, but yeah, the people were happy. At least they reported in the Discord. And then, so from there, there was just demand for, really anyone to buy it. And doctors, because the dose that we're prescribing is about 1/1000th of the dose that people take orally for them, which is just if you have low thyroid levels in your blood. So doctors felt comfortable with prescribing it. And so we were able to offer it an Antigen.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it's been working for me, so I can say that. I don't own any hair tokens either, so I have no bias. It's just a great product, and it works well.
Yeah.
And I guess, do you find who's kind of willing to try these products? I mean, it feels like a little bit more on the edge. I'm an early adopter of a lot of stuff, so I just thought I'll just go for it. But do you see anything with people who are maybe in the medical field or maybe know more about this and they're more wary? I'm just making a couple of assumptions, but I'm curious.
Yeah, that's a great. I think right now it's all been word of mouth marketing. We haven't really anything on marketing. What we will do soon, which you'll be receiving retroactively, is like a hair drop customers Antigen. So, and we'll play around with that too, because really I think something that's cool about DAOs and tokens is ideally you can sort of disrupt the large amounts of money spent on advertising. So like him spends over 500 million a year on marketing, on ads, which isn't really best for, imagine if that 500 million was going towards research instead. So I think that's kind of our goal with using the token and the telehealth is how can we get word of mouth around without having to spend so much money on marketing?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I have a specific question. So when my dad visited me recently, he's a physician. He saw Antigen in my counter. He's like, "Oh, what is this? You're trying this?" And he's usually open to trying stuff. Then he looked it up. What's T3, thyroid? He's like, "Dude, I don't know if you should be taking this." He didn't make a strong argument. He was very confused and was like, "I really don't know if you should put this in your scalp, blah, 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 blah." And I was like, "I'm going to try it." I just continued to use it. But I'm curious, speaking to a customer like that, or, anyone who might know more about medicine and is a little worried, kind of, how would you address that head on?
Yeah. I mean, obviously everyone should, talk to a doctor, and obviously I'm incentivized to, promote.
Sure. Of course.
Yeah. So, but I mean, the dose is 1/1000th of what about 500,000 people take a day orally. Topically, you'll get, even less going systemically just because, some portion of that will be absorbed locally in the scalp and the hair follicle. So it should even be even less. And then in terms of the regrowth, so that's the side effects. And then on the efficacy, there, from what I've seen, there have been people that have taken and had, very that have been very happy with the response and have, data to show that. So yeah, I think with any drug, you just want to weigh the side effects and the efficacy. And sort of our job is to try to optimize that for you so that, you don't have to worry about it, hopefully.
This episode is sponsored by Newts. This is my favorite supplement for energy, and I take it whenever I need to lock in. So if you're a founder, student, or new dad like me, you've got to try it. It's got guarana for energy, alpha GPC for memory, and L-theanine to avoid any crashes. Again, try Newts. Just go to sendnewts.com. All right, let's get back to this episode.
Quick question. So first time I'm speaking, this is what I sound like. For the science people out there, so we'll do like a 2-minute segment. I'm guessing this is primarily for androgenic hair loss and not for autoimmune driven. How does that work? How does the T3 have a combative effect on what is the testosterone type of thing that, I forgot what it's called, whatever finasteride blocks?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah. So yeah, this is completely different. So like you're saying, finasteride lowers dihydrotestosterone, DHT, by about 70%, depending on the dose. And so like this is completely different. Doesn't touch any of your sex hormones at all. It's interesting. Our principal scientist would tell you that it's not necessarily lowering DHT that has the effect, but he thinks it could actually be other effects from blocking the enzyme.
Oh, interesting.
So we're queuing up some studies for that right now. But yeah, this is completely separate. So hypothetically also synergistic, but also, me personally, I don't take finasteride. I just think it's, like we were talking before. Yeah, the side effects can be severe. So
can we zoom into that? Sorry to cut you off, but the finasteride thing, just because everyone's talking about these days, it's like the devil's liquid or whatever. And I don't know, but so basically where I'm coming from is, my feed is everything. It's Brian Johnson, it's anabology, it's RFK, it's people who stand outside in the sun in the nude. Like I've got it all. I'm interested in alternative health. So I see every angle possible. And, when finasteride comes up, it's like, you can't be taking it. It's going to ruin your sex drive. It's going to ruin all this. But then also scarier stuff like, it shouldn't be around children. It shouldn't be around pregnant women. Like, so how much of that is true? Where does it all come from? And how is this it seems like the primary hair loss drug? Because I'll tell you, before this product, I used something from Hims and it had finasteride and they didn't tell me about any of this stuff. Like my wife is pregnant and I do have a child. So I'd like to know if it shouldn't be in the house.
Yeah. The truth is it's patient to patient. So my co-founder's been on finasteride for 10 years without side effects. His sperm count was low, but then he got off it for 2 weeks and because he just did a test to know, he got off it for 2 weeks and it was completely normal. So yeah, and so he would tell you it's great. Our principal scientist had post-finasteride syndrome, which is kind of what we were talking about, just the side effects if they linger even after you stop taking the drug. But I think like anything, it's like there's a small group of people who have bad side effects and you'll hear a lot because, they're obviously very frustrated. And so then, and there's no solution of post-finasteride syndrome. So you express that frustration on the internet. Whereas I think, probably 90% of people take finasteride and with no noticeable side effects. So I think in terms of actual side effects that people feel, I think most people don't feel them. And I think that, that's why it's FDA approved and that's why a lot of people take it. So yeah, that's what I'd say. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. And okay, so to zoom out a little bit, how did you get here? Why did you decide to work on this? Kind of tell us the path on the way here.
So I was called Patches in high school.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I've just always had thin hair. And so if you have thin hair and you think you're going to be losing your hair, you start losing your hair, in your 20s. That's kind of not the most fun thing. So yeah, so that was sort of how I think I knew it was a bigger problem. And my co-founder as well, he actually would call me Patches in high school. Then he started losing his hair very aggressively. Yeah. His freshman year of college, he would wake up with huge piles of hair on the bed. And that was when he started taking finasteride. And then he got a hair transplant. So he's been piecing it together. But I'm actually not even a candidate for a hair transplant because I'm what's called a diffuse thinner. So I'm actually thinning, my hairline's good, but I'm sort of thinning throughout. So I can't just hair from here and move them here.
I see.
Or I could, but they would probably fall out. Most hair transplants fall out anyway within 4 to 6 years. I would have very little chance of having a good outcome there. For me, this is kind of my only hope. And then separately in college, I sort of got into crypto, first through Bitcoin, then Ethereum, and then DeFi, just sort of the whole rabbit hole. And And then
How did Bitcoin get into your life? Like, I'm kind of more curious on the very start, like the first thing that happened.
I mean, I read like the initial books, like the Nathaniel Popper Digital Gold book. There were a few others, one or two others, I'm forgetting. I think it was just from like looking at the US debt chart and then just going, this doesn't look sustainable. And then kind of what we were saying before with DeSci and the current system, Bitcoin just kind of offered a different system for that. And then obviously Ethereum took it even a step further in terms of just rebuilding everything instead of just the money side. So yeah.
And are there things in that space that kind of distract you, you're spending your time on now that are unrelated to HairDAO, or do you feel like most of your focus in crypto, ETH, et cetera, is in DeSci and with what you're building?
No, yeah, I'm fully levered HairDAO. I only own Hair and ETH.
Okay.
And
Purist.
HairDAO is obviously on top of ETH. So yeah, fully levered Ethereum and HairDAO.
Can you talk us through? So I remember the DeFi days and I imagine the DAO stuff. How did you go from a guy who owned some Bitcoin and Ethereum and knew about DeFi to starting this Discord to a year something later, going live with the DAO? Or I'm not like the biggest crypto guy. I've been burned by crypto and sort of backed away slowly. I still have some Bitcoin. Curious, can you walk us through that for like a kind of a crypto Luddite of sorts?
Yeah, for sure. So at first I was a Bitcoin maximalist, I would say, until like 2019, maybe. I started going to the BitDevs meetups. And like, it was just like, I obviously like, I guess vibe is the word people say now. Like I vibed with them on a lot of things, but they just weren't building anything, which is kind of ingrained into Bitcoin's culture, that was kind of the second realization from there, is like Bitcoin's cultures that don't change Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Which to me, just like I come from a more engineering background, just wasn't that interesting. I sort of lost interest. And then running the math, like on a blockchain, you can pay for security through either inflation or transaction fees. So the blockchain with the most transaction fees could have the lowest inflation and still have the most security. And so realizing that, and then sort of looking at all the economies of scale of liquidity and code and miner distribution, sort of led me to becoming an ETH maxi. And I will say, like, before I was a Bitcoin maxi, I was like, in 2017, I was buying like Neo, EOS.
Oh, yeah.
I got, Elf, Duce. I've bought Ethereum competitors you've never heard of. I've definitely run the full gambit there. And so I would say I became an ETH maxi maybe in 2020, somewhere around there.
Sounds about right.
And I think maybe DeFi Summer cemented that for me even further, just seeing like use cases beyond the ICO. And then, so I was kind of gradually becoming 100% Ethereum in terms of my holdings. And then saw VitaDAO launch in the summer of 2021. And I thought it was the coolest app I'd seen since being in the space. And then just knowing what I knew about it.
What was it? Can you tell us more about it?
So VitaDAO, so we're kind of the second BioDAO. The first one was VitaDAO. So they launched in July of 2021, I think. And it was, to me, the coolest thing that I'd seen in crypto, just because before you'd had like the art NFTs and like, which were cool, but like I kind of struggled to see the inherent value in them. Like, not to poke fun at art. I know people buy art for large amounts of money, but just like me personally, I didn't think that they were delivering that much. And then, to me, like actually taking research and bringing that on chain through NFTs was really productive. And that got me really exciting. Just actually thinking about like, what are the most productive use cases of crypto?
I see. And so we took you on this kind of crypto detour. So from the bullying or terms of endearment in high school, whatever you want to call it, to buying your first Bitcoin. What happened between that and this company? Were you doing research outside of crypto? Like, kind of what were you working on the way up to starting HairDAO?
Yeah, so learning bio is very similar to learning crypto, where in crypto you have white papers, bio you basically have research papers.
Sure.
And you can read a few books here and there to sort of fill in the gap. And now with Chat, GPT, and Perplexity, it's even easier to fill in gaps. So yeah, I would say the learning process is about 2 to 3 years for both, maybe, to actually, or at least for me personally, that's what it was, to actually feel like I was in a good place. And so I'd started getting into bio while investing in crypto through David Sinclair's book. I think I read in early 2021. He's a longevity researcher, sort of had a bestseller, just because I think just in general, I think bio is like an appealing topic, right? Because you can extend your lifespan, stay healthier, fix your hair loss. Like obviously that came later. But yeah, so I'd been getting into bio while investing. And then honestly launched HairDAO at a point where still didn't really, like I was by no means a bio expert, like, and I still don't, I'm still learning every day. But I think being in the HairDAO Discord like definitely accelerated my understanding, just because to talk with the people that were coming in, you just had to keep trying to up-level yourself.
I see. And how did you make that decision to launch this? Because it seems like it's a problem that's, dear to you, or probably you have yourself. So you wanted to go solve it, I imagine. And then you realize like, okay, there's this ETH thing that I'm really into. It seems like we can get money, do decentralized research and decentralized finance to pull the money together. What was it like? What was that moment, or how did you make that decision? Like, okay, I'm learning about bio. I don't really know it, but fuck it. I'm just going to make this DAO and we're going to get all these people together. And, now you're standing here in a lab coat, delivering. Like, so that initial step, like, how do you take that? Because I'm sure a lot of people find themselves in that position, but, don't go take the next step.
Yeah, I think you have to care about the problem a lot. And I think it's sort of this trifecta where you care about it a lot, other people care a lot about it a lot, and then hopefully you're like decent at some of the things that are needed to make it successful. I've always like kind of excelled at math and sciences. Like my major was under the mechanical engineering department in college. So like, I've learning like how to use a lab machine is no different than learning how to weld or sandcast or mill or anything. So yeah, I think, it was just something that I cared a lot about. And I think I knew that other people cared about a lot just from talking to friends and being on the internet. And then, I really saw crypto as a way to unify people around the problem, just knowing what I knew about crypto. So yeah, I would say, it happened, sort of gradually. Like, at first you're just launching a Discord and talking to people. We didn't get any money for the project until, probably 8 or 9 months after launching the Discord. So at first it's very much just for and to just learn. And then it just gradually just kept becoming more serious.
And this was always going to be a DAO, it sounds like. You saw the Vita DAO. You thought, I want to do this. I'm going to launch a Discord. I'm guessing you already had some friends together, like probably crypto friends together. Was that a natural thing, or was there a decision there? How do you go from talking with your friends, you like the idea of DAOs, to now you've got this community? Was there an interesting step in there?
Yeah, I think from watching a lot of the DeFi projects, watching incentives sort of get misaligned sometimes if you have like the equity entity in the token, because then if you have a C Corp, right, that you take money through, you're obligated to your shareholders to maximize value of that C Corp. And then if you have a token, like you have a community holding that token, you want to maximize value for them too. So yeah, I think the approach a lot of DeFi companies took, where they sort of split it 50-50, I think created a decent amount of problems for them. So, and actually the DeFi project that I was most involved in was Urine Finance, which kind of took so they kind of took the DAO only approach, which I think like helped them a lot. And so bringing that sort of Urine approach to HairDAO, I think is really important, just because of how much our community gives us. Like our best researchers are anonymous community members. So like we want them to hold the asset that governs all of the IP, not to have a token where, then a lot of the IP is actually stored in an equity company that they don't have any ownership over. So, yeah.
And so since you have a token and these people do have, governance, eventually people would start air quoting governance because it became just a way to legally or gray area distribute this token. It sounds like it's something that's actually important to you. Have you had people that, you don't know, or external parties that hold like a decent amount of this token that have been able to participate in governance and maybe change something that wasn't exactly aligned with what you wanted or kind of surprised you? I'm kind of curious, how's it actually played out for you? Yeah,
great question. I think it's a great check, honestly, on the people working on the project, just because I think it has it's a double-edged sword. It's a great check because everything you do is transparent. Like, all the problems you have are aired out in the open, but at the same time, right, everyone's informed. So we basically avoid backdoor decisions as much as possible, which I think is good, just because if we actually want to offer an alternative to the NIH, having transparency, I think is something that, perhaps they might struggle with more than we would. In terms of the other side of that sword is it can be sort of populist driven, where if an idea is very popular, maybe it's not the best idea. But at the same time, you still feel the need to, give the community what they want with that idea. So I would say that can be a downside is just falling into popularity contests. But at the same time, right, like the majority can be right as well, right? So yeah, like I would much rather have a whole community of people doing research with us and maybe fall into a popularity contest sometimes than just be me and two people in a room and like have way fewer ideas and have no one care.
And what makes a problem if the majority is into something, but maybe you think, oh, we've tried that. Like, how do you go about that? Because ideas, I understand how they could take hold just because someone says something or it becomes memeified or something. But what are ways you combat that? What are some reasons in the past that you've thought we don't want to work on this because of X, but they really want to, so we're just going to do it because of Y? Or yeah, what's the thought process there?
Yeah. I mean, I view myself as just another community member, like
Sure.
in terms of the type of political sway I want to have. So I kind of just keep my mouth shut and just,
Got it.
just do it. Just because, yeah, I think like I can be wrong a lot of the times too. Yeah, like, I just kind of keep my mouth shut and do the work. But yeah, I think like on the other side of that, there have definitely been ideas that I've pushed that, maybe other people haven't, but, just because of my reputation, I've been able to push through. So I think,
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So there to interpret that, it sounds like there are ideas that sometimes you don't agree with, but everybody wants, and it's like, who are you to say we shouldn't do this because you're just one thousandth of the community or something?
exactly.
Makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
And it sounds like this isn't theoretical. So like this situation is materialized, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, several times.
Okay. I mean, how do you feel like working in that environment? Like, do you think it ends up being like a net good, even if there are minor annoyances?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, yeah, because at the end of the day, you just want to create as much data and like take as much action as possible. And so like having a community of people constantly forcing action, who constantly want the cure or at least new treatments at the least, it forces you to do things, which I think is ultimately just like what we have to do. And it, like in terms of like I view a lot of my role too in terms of setting up the infrastructure to actually like run the studies and just lower our costs as much as possible, increase our distribution as much as possible. Like in terms of the actual water that we run through the pipes, if we drive costs low enough, like most of these will be failures, in the lab. But just by having the lab, if we can drive down costs 50 times, we can take 50 more shots. So yeah, I think we kind of just view it all as fuel more than anything.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I don't know if you remember, there's a big time where DAO tooling was all the craze, at least in venture. And even my last company got caught got caught in that mix as well. And we couldn't really find anything real. What I noticed is like a lot of VCs were asking for DAO tooling and a lot of investors were talking about it and some end users. But when I started talking to DAOs, they're like, I don't know, I think it's fine. It's like if your DAO is good and you have good members, they'll all vote and participate. And if you have shitty members and you're here to grind out a token, like they won't. It doesn't matter what the tools are. Is that kind of your view of it? Do you feel like you have everything you need to like manage and, run this DAO? Or have there been some core innovations that were very helpful?
Yeah, I mean, I think just working on a problem that people care about is the most important part for DAO. And then like Discord's a great forum for people who want to talk frequently. So I'd never really been on Discord like that much. But now I spend pretty much all day on Discord. So I would say that was probably the biggest one. And then in turn, like, I just think like, I think we use a lot of the general purpose tools that sort of anyone uses. Like, we use all the AI tools, Figma, Canva, Adobe, GitHub, obviously, so, I don't think it's that dissimilar from running a company. Maybe just your CRM of your community just is a little more undefined, just because the types, like, we have people from all over the world, just you're just trying to pull in as many people as possible. So I think that if there's any place to be innovated on, it's probably just like a really cool CRM tool. But at the same time, I'm sure there are plenty of people already building that. So
okay, so what you're telling me is it's not too unlike any other company, and you may not need some specialized tools to manage everybody.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay. And then one thing I wanted to kind of workshop with you, since I have one of the, I guess we'll call, are people calling them summoners now, or do you use the word CEO? I'm kind of curious if that matters to you, and then I'll get to what I was about to say. What is your title at HairDAO?
I'm self-proclaimed chief technocrat.
Okay.
But I don't have a formal title.
Okay, that's fine. But since I have you here, let's say I wanted to go solve chronic back pain. I'm sure people have approached you with this many times. What do you do? Let's say I want to start back DAO. Like, what does the next week look like for me or anyone listening? Because you seem to have actually come to some solutions with hair, and I'm sure you have 100 more, and like you feel like you're getting started. But what does that first week look like in starting one of these? I'm sure it's changed now, but I'm curious.
No, yeah, I think it's a great question. I think you would want to find as many either traditional or internet researchers as you can, and start forming like your initial community. Ideally, patients as well. Like the perfect community member is and I think this is where we excel just because of how many people have hair loss is a patient that's also like a really strong researcher. So yeah, I would just start there. And then, because I think once you get all of them in a room, like your research will be better, your product ideas will be better, your ideas of how to improve the current system will be better. You'll find people that you want to hire eventually, or even soon,
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And is there a day that you expand out of hair, or do you think it's something you'll be kind of focused on for the lifetime of this?
No. So we aren't openly yet, but we are sort of internally, just because biology is biology. But obviously, like different parts of the body, like your spine is going to be very different from your hair. But like a lot of our patents cover skin. Like that's kind of an easy next step. Your gut lining sort of regenerates with a communication pattern that's very similar to your hair. Hearing, there are like a bunch of small hairs at the end of nerves that can be damaged. And then like even several of our patents right now are also neuro related. So like thyrotropin releasing hormone, we just patented 2 repurposed drugs that are like more, this will sound extreme, but like more, like anti-opioid addiction or more neuro drugs. So yeah, I think like our long-term goal is definitely expand, but really where it makes sense, because like the reason we're all here is to cure hair loss. If we expand, it would probably be more serendipitous, at least in the near term.
And okay, in your role as chief technocrat, CEO, Big Hoss, whatever your title is, I think Big Hoss, I'm throwing that in the ring. How does going about hiring and making decisions work? I imagine a lot of the time you're conferring with the community, but sometimes it probably doesn't make sense. Is that true, or do you always run things by the community?
Yeah, always run things by the community. Just 'cause I think it's good marketing at the least.
Sure.
Like if you're bringing on a chief medical officer who you're really excited about, like I think everyone will be. I'm excited about it too. And then our principal scientist, like I was saying, we hired from the Discord. So I've been talking to him as an anon for a year and a half. And he just took out his lease today. Chinatown.
Oh, good man.
So
so your community, you could almost think of it as like a board of directors. There's just many of them.
Yeah.
Okay, understood.
What is it like working with like anonymous people?
I love it. I mean, I was anonymous in the urine community. I was anon.
Okay.
I think it gives people a lot more power to say what they actually think. Obviously there's a trade-off, right? Like in my role, like I can't be anonymous. But like, yeah, I mean, I personally love being anonymous. It's fun. So.
And how do you establish trust? I'm sure the casual listener, that's the first thing that comes up. It's like, okay, I'm talking to this PFP and we're doing serious work together. Who the hell is this person?
Yeah. No, it's built over time, for sure. Just like if you're talking to someone so much that you start, just referring to them outside of Discord by their Discord name, you're probably talking to them a lot. Yeah, I think our Discord does over 1 million messages a year at this point. Yeah, like some of the people in our community, like I feel like I know, very well.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. I mean, it's a different way to work, but I guess in crypto, it's not. It's getting more normalized, and I think some venture funds have anons too now at this point.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I think if you want to be able to say things unfiltered, it's the way to do it.
I don't know. Elon keeps tweeting whatever the hell he wants. But okay, so a serious question though. I mean, you've been, you're working in a highly regulated space. You're using crypto, which is just total gray area when it comes to what's right and what's wrong, but hopefully that's being fixed now. Do you have issues, with different governments, like different regulation? I imagine you do. Like, what has it been like working through those, and has that changed over time?
Great question. It's definitely something we've always tried to sort of front run proactively. So like we hired an FDA consultant when we were first bringing T3 to market with this next batch of drugs that we'll be bringing to people sooner than later. We just re-engaged her. So yeah, on the FDA side, like definitely have been front running it as much as we can. In the crypto side, we've just tried to front run it. Just like, you know, there aren't really per se SEC consultants. I guess they're lawyers, securities lawyers, but just sort of taking all the steps to make the project as decentralized as possible. So like a fair launch, I think is a great way. Like there's no company that had a pre-mine that then launched a token. Like we launched 100% of the token. Then the initial community members vote to basically issue more tokens to then fund further development of the DAO. So I think a fair launch can be a really powerful tool for that. I think we don't pay for a market maker. We've never paid for an exchange listing. So we don't really market the token saying like, oh, it's going to, we've never paid an influencer to market the token. So I think just like trying to just do as little as possible so that they're hopefully just always bigger fish to fry on that front has sort of been our strategy there.
Okay. Just being proactive, being above board. And it sounds like it hasn't been an issue yet. When you're working with medical professionals, I imagine their opinion of crypto has been changing over time, but I'm sure that many of them, like you said, are pretty excited about doing this research. So have you had to sell people on crypto? Like, what has that experience been like?
Yeah, definitely. I would say even for most of our community, it came from outside of crypto. It's
cool.
Called the hair loss community.
Yeah.
Like in our Discord, there's very little, like there are no like, or very little degen like crypto traders. It's yeah. And then with more traditional, like our chief medical officer will be announcing soon. Like I think this will be the first time he's owning crypto maybe through the hair token. So definitely, there's definitely an explainer. I think crypto is sort of cool where I think, you know, people, at least more tech savvy people do it, like someone who's seen the internet come kind of knows this might be something big maybe. So I think just as long as you just answer all their questions and, you know, kind of explain why you're doing it the way you're doing it. Yeah, I think like if we can't onboard smart people that you want to work with, then, you know, we're probably in trouble.
Okay. And, you know, I teased at alternative health and stuff like that. It's been, you know, it's been a big part of the discourse now and just like trying new things that, you know, aren't approved or whatever. I think one place to start here is, you know, Brian Johnson has lended a lot of credibility to these red light hats for hair loss, a category that's been around, but has always been kind of just passed on as just stupid, more like a cash grab. But once people saw him doing it, you know, he's like a science bro, right? So it kind of validated, I think, for like a whole new audience. Like, what is your opinion of these things? Do they do anything? I'm just curious.
So first off, I'm a big Brian Johnson fan. I was at the Don't Die Summit in New York
Nice.
a week or so ago. So I love Brian Johnson. I will say I don't think that those work. But I do think like, you know, maybe that's more of like the populism concepts we were talking before where, you know, he's popular because he's doing a lot of, you know, really great things. And, you know, I don't think he would tell you that he's going to go 100% for all of the ideas that he has either. Because I know with him, he's also taking dutasteride, which is very effective. So like, you know, he's doing a lot of things that are, you know, more effective than red light. And then I think if you asked our community, they would tell you that red light hasn't worked for any of them. I just, that's what I'd say.
Okay, sure. And so like when these things pop up, right? I mean, we're in the do your own research era and you know, you're actually a pretty serious version of that. You know, your group of people who decided to do their own research and have now come out the other side with a real product. There's obviously a lot of people doing that and maybe coming up with stupid solutions or things that don't work, but we're at a point where everything is on the table. That's pretty interesting to me. More experiments works. I don't mind if more of them go wrong as well.
Yeah, I think like the historical figure that I've always liked the most was Ben Franklin, just because he flew the kite. Like I think that that's the way that anything is done. You have to fly the kite. So I mean, I think it's awesome. Like I think, like you were saying, just like running way more experiments will generate so much more data, find the truth so much quicker. So yeah, I think it's a really exciting time to be involved.
Go ahead, Jack.
Okay, so I'm going to totally derail us.
Yeah,
I
please.
have a question. So you're obviously running a company doing very cool work. You have this large community behind you. It seemed like this all materialized rather quickly in the last 5 or so years. What was your plan? If I'm talking to you in 2019, is this how it was going to go? Like what, you know, how did you go from that guy to this guy? Was there a lot of conscious effort involved, or was it a bunch of small steps along the way that led you to this? Because I imagine a lot of aspiring founders or just random people in college or whatever are listening to this and thinking, okay, you're where I want to be, and now you're here.
I wouldn't view myself as successful yet. Take this all with a grain of salt. It's definitely, like in 2019, I would have told you if I were to launch a successful crypto project, it would be like an ETH competitor or something. And then kind of ironically arrived at like a thesis in 2020, 21 that those are all stupid. And then obviously the markets told me I'm wrong in the short term, but I don't bet against any of them. So I don't really care. But yeah, very gradually, just like,
There's no master plan.
No, not at all. Not at all. I will say, just from trying to launch other projects like in Web 2 and Web 3 and failing, I kind of had a feeling early on when there was like a different sort of energy. But I think also that was just because I'd cared about other stuff that I'd worked on, but like this was the first one where I could feel how excited other people were too. So I would say that was kind of like a tell signal for me.
Interesting. And what were some of those other projects?
I tried launching, I don't know if you know the Graph. They're like a Web3 API.
Yeah.
I was launching like a competitor to that. There was a social app where I wanted to like replace social Facebook events where like 70% of the app was owned by people who went to the events. And so you would get one fun token for if you went, and if you threw it, you would get one fun token for every person that went.
Oh, that's cool.
There was an Ethereum competitor at a point that I helped out with. There was a VR company that I consulted for. When I was in college, I tried to bring town halls online. I was interning for a city councilman, and I was like, why is all this stuff done in person? We should bring this online. Found out that old people, going to the in-person stuff, it's like more simple.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, just because something is hypothetically more efficient, there's like a lot of other factors at play too.
Very interesting. Yeah, I've been playing with this thesis. I built infrastructure for, consumer AI chatbots. And we're in an interesting spot where we have some customers, they're happy with us, but we're finding that there aren't that many customers. So we're expanding beyond into new markets. And then I look at competitors in the call center space. So we do voice, we do tool calling, we do memory. There are companies that are just doing voice, but they're doing it to replace call centers. And those companies are ripping. Like these companies are some of those like hyperbolic, just insane growth curve companies. And as I've been chewing on this idea, it's like, okay, if you find a problem today that has existed for a long time, that hasn't been able to be solved until recently, that's like a huge market opportunity. And I feel like hair loss is one of those things where you finally have the tools. Obviously, you've been able to do science forever, but you're in this time now where you have access to community and distribution and people can learn really quickly. It just feels like you mentioned that energy. You found a problem and you found a way to solve it in a way that's never been possible before.
Yeah, no, I think that's beautifully said. I'd be curious to learn more about your AI tool. We've been trying to integrate, it a lot more like on our dev side and also on our content side. So yeah, no.
All right, sounds like we offline sales call happening after this one. But before we wrap it up, so Jack can make a sale. Andrew, please. The end is like a shilling section. What are you looking for right now? Are you hiring? Are you looking for people for your community? And then obviously shill your products as well. If people are inspired by your mission right now, how could they help you?
Yeah, I think the best way is just to join our Discord. You'll sort of see what's going on every day there.
Where can they find it?
If you go on our Twitter page, first go on our Twitter page, then click on the Discord link in the bio. No,
I'll click follow first and then click
follow the Twitter first. We are trying to do a better job of posting more to Twitter, just because it's what the algorithm rewards, and also allows us to then distribute a lot of the content we're putting on Discord also through Twitter. And now that we're launching, our TikTok actually already has a pretty decent following, but now we're also starting to build the Instagram now that we're launching consumer products. So you can follow us on any platform, really.
And what is the profile of the person that could really contribute?
So really we're at the stage now where you could kind of be anywhere from like a researcher to someone who wants to participate in a trial to like a customer for something that's already approved, or the shampoo. So we are sort of at a cool stage now as an organization where no matter where you fall on the spectrum, you can participate and help us, and hopefully help yourself too.
Okay, awesome, Andrew. Yeah, it's been great chatting with you. I'm gonna drop in the links, the description. You're gonna see where you can buy Anagen, Follow Cool, or go solve hair loss yourself. Yeah, it's been great having you, Andrew. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Cheers.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, see ya.